I wanted to lighten up my trigger. Didn't like the way the Glock 26 trigger felt. It just felt pretty heavy. And I thought it threw my shots off a little bit if I didn't really think to, I guess if I didn't concentrate too much on the trigger pull. So I wanted to lighten it up a little bit, so I got this Ghost Rocket trigger kit. Came with some springs, came with a trigger bar, and more springs. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to replace the trigger bar. I'm going to leave the springs in the bag and not even deal with those. This is pretty easy to do. I'll begin by telling you that I've already filed this down, and what it's going to require you to do is file this little piece down. And it took a lot of effort. I kept filing and finally got it down to the right point where I was able to pull the trigger. Now, before I begin, I want to show you that the gun is clear. There's nothing in the chamber. But basically, what happens is if you don't follow this piece down far enough, once you reassemble the gun, you won't be able to pull the trigger. And the problem with that is you have to pull the trigger to disassemble. So you have to put this together with this bar, reassemble it, test it out. Now, some kits come with a little plate back here that allows you to go in there and release the trigger so you can disassemble. However, all you need to do is, if you don't have that little plate, just pull this back. Right here underneath this pin is a little black tab. All you have to do is reach in there and push down to release the tension on this plate. It's right underneath this little silver pin. It's a firing pin. So basically you push it down, and with your finger just start sliding it. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the table as for some leverage so I can get the slide back. Just push it down, and at the same time use your finger here to slide. Now slide slowly because there's a spring in there. You see it just popped out? And that's all you have to do. Just pull this, and then you could just disassemble like you would after you pull the trigger. And it'll let you slide it out. Now what you have to do after this is basically push this firing pin spring back in. And what you want to do is, I don't have a Glock tool, but I have this little screwdriver. You want to push this pin back in. And what I do is I get this cover and I just start sliding it, and it won't go any further because this pin is in the way. I just put my thumb and put some pressure and just push this down until the slide covers it. Okay, now you got this right here, this little spring pin as well. You need to push that down and push down. There, you clicked it in. And that's how you disassemble it after you test to see if you follow this down enough. Okay, so basically what you need to do also is take this pin back here out. Basically all you have to do is push it through. If you have a Glock tool, it'll probably work better, Allen wrench or something small like this. Just pull the pin out. What that does is allow you to pull this trigger mechanism out. Pull the trigger and it'll pull out a little bit. There you go. And basically what I would recommend is just squeeze right here on this metal piece in this bar. Just squeeze, and you see how it rotates this out the way? And what you want to do is grab this bar right here. That's what we're going to replace this bar with. So you get a kitchen knife or a little screwdriver and just pry it out. Down here at the bottom it's inserted, so you want to kind of go low and just start pulling it out. Once it starts to slide out, you can just grab it with your hands and pull it. Now, for grinding, I use this grinder that comes with the Dremel tool and just basically go to town on it. What I would do is, it's going to take a long time. You just want to Take a little bit off at a time. Assemble it. Basically what you want to do is get this back in. Make sure that the bar is underneath this piece right here. And you'll see that this little cross needs to fit into a little groove. This groove right here. Can be tricky sometimes. Just gotta wiggle it a little bit. Usually goes in a little bit easier. There we go. Okay, so once you get that back in, this plate should be underneath this trigger mechanism and this long bar right here. Basically all I have to do is push it back in until you hear it click. Okay. Now what you're going to do is put the pin back in. And you want to pull the trigger. And what's going to happen is nothing's going to happen. So this is where you run into the problem where you can't disassemble unless you're able to pull the trigger. What that means is you didn't grind that piece down enough to allow allow the trigger to pull all the way. You see, I'm stuck here. So what I have to do is I have to go back in here again, put some tension on this little tab down here, grab this little cover, and just start sliding. Put your finger there so the spring doesn't fly out. And basically, you disassemble like you normally would. Okay? Look at that, put it in upside down. Okay, so what's happening is, if you can see, the little bar that you need to fall down is right here. And when you get it, it's pretty long, and it doesn't allow you to slide this back as you pull the trigger. As you pull the trigger, it doesn't go further enough. And what you need to do is file it down enough to where when you pull the trigger, it'll actually activate the firing pin. Okay, now this one's been filed down. I finally got it down to the right space. And you're going to take quite a bit off. Probably, I took off about the same amount of materials as it is thick. And then what I ended up doing was I used the polishing pad with the Dremel tool, and I used Mother's Mag and aluminum polish, and I just polished it down. You can pick this up at any like O'Reilly's, AutoZone, or any auto store. It's used, I guess, for rims, but it does a good job. So basically what you need to do is you need to just repeat that process over and over again until you get that down perfectly. Basically you have to take the pin out here in the back, lift this out, squeeze right here again, slide it out, just get your tool with the grinder bit and just grind it down. And wear some safety glasses because you'll have some pieces of metal flying around. And then once you're done, just buff it out. I just put a little dab on there. And you just use the Dremel tool on low. And what I also do is I polish the outside. As you can see, it's pretty shiny. And the reason I do that is because it's going to be rubbing up against this piece right here. And I also polished the inside of this, so as you pull the trigger, it reduces the friction and makes it for a smoother trigger pull. Just basically wipe it down. And reassemble. Make sure you start with this thing on this bar underneath this bar, because it's going to be underneath there when you assemble it. It should slide in pretty easy, but I'm having trouble.
You finish your video, okay?
Snap it in place. Put your pin back in. Slide back in. There you go. Nice and smooth. Now I can't really tell. It's really nice and smooth. However, sometimes it feels like the trigger is not that much lighter. It might be a pound lighter, but I don't think it's 3.5 pounds as advertised. But that's it. Pretty simple and easy to do. I've had problems with it. Once you get real close, you'll notice if you put your magazine in, you pull the trigger, it'll fire. But if you try it without the magazine, it won't. It'll be stuck. That basically means you're almost finishing with the follow. Just follow a little bit more, and then just keep trying, and without the magazine. And if that doesn't work, then basically put the magazine back in, try, and that way you don't have to take this back cover off. You'll at least be able to fire to disassemble. That's pretty much it. I don't know what it's like yet shooting. I'm going to take it to the range tomorrow and see what it feels like. But it's a pretty simple job. You don't need to take it to a gunsmith. You can do it yourself.